Ethan adjusted the control panel on the surface of the rocky planet, his gloves scraping against the metal casing. Dust swirled in the thin atmosphere, and the twin suns of Viridian 4 made the horizon shimmer like a mirage. The planet was uninhabited, or so he had thought. As an engineer sent to repair a distant communications relay, he was used to solitude, but something unusual caught his eye. A flash of movement near the cliffs made him freeze. At first, he thought it was a reflection, or a trick of the light, but then he saw a figure struggling against the jagged rocks below. It was humanoid, but taller and slimmer than any human, with shapes and contours he had never seen before. Armor clung to the figure like a second skin, and it glinted faintly under the sun. Ethan's heart raced. Encounters with alien life were supposed to be rare on Viridian 4, yet here was one real and alive and clearly in trouble. Without thinking, he grabbed his emergency kit and descended the slope carefully, minding each step. "Hello, are you okay?" he called, hoping the being could understand him. The alien froze. Its head tilted slightly, studying him. Then it let out a sound, a soft, musical hum that echoed strangely against the rocky walls. Ethan frowned. The sound was neither threatening nor friendly, just uncertain. He reached out slowly, showing his empty hands to signal he meant no harm. The alien, he realized it was female by the graceful way she moved, gestured with her long, delicate fingers. She pointed at her suit, then at herself, then back at him. Ethan frowned. The suit seemed damaged. Sparks flickered along its seams and small cracks ran down the metal-like surface. He took a deep breath. "You need help. I can fix it." The alien's eyes, large, golden, and full of intelligence, widened slightly. She stepped back cautiously but did not flee. It was clear she was weighing her options, deciding whether to trust him. Ethan lowered his voice and crouched slightly, trying to make himself less threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "I just want to help." She tilted her head, then nodded, almost imperceptibly. Ethan understood this as consent. Carefully, he approached her, examining the damaged areas of the suit. He could see that the inner mechanisms were exposed and the suit was restricting her movement. One wrong step and it could injure her further. "Can you move?" he asked. She tried to lift her arm, but a spark flashed, and she hissed softly. Ethan winced. The suit was more complex than anything he had ever seen. "I can handle this," he muttered to himself. Slowly, carefully, he began by stabilizing the damaged sections of the suit. Using small tools from his kit, he disconnected frayed circuits, replaced broken connectors, and reinforced the cracks. The alien watched him intently, her eyes tracking every movement. At first, she made small gestures, pointing or tapping parts of the suit as if to communicate. Ethan followed her signals as best as he could, realizing she was trying to guide him. Hours seemed to pass as he worked. Sweat poured down his face beneath his helmet, and his fingers grew sore, but he persisted. Every so often she let out a soft hum, almost like encouragement or maybe relief. Finally, he reached the most critical part of the suit. The chest panel was cracked, and the internal support systems were failing. Ethan knew he had to remove it completely to prevent further harm. He froze for a moment, aware of the delicate trust that had developed. "I need to take this off now," he said softly, even though she might not understand the words. He gestured to the panel. "Okay?" The alien's large eyes studied him. Then, in a gesture that startled him, she extended her arms slightly, leaning back to give him access. It was clear she trusted him, at least enough to allow this delicate procedure. Ethan worked slowly, unfastening tiny clamps and gently lifting the armor away. Sparks fizzled out, and the hissing of released pressure made him flinch. She didn't resist. She remained still, even when part of the suit scraped against her arm. Her hum changed, softer, more melodic, almost like a song of relief. When the final panel was removed, Ethan stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow. Beneath the HFY suit was something remarkable. Her skin was smooth, slightly iridescent in the sunlight, shifting colors subtly as she moved. Her form was humanoid but elegant, alien yet beautiful in a way that was completely natural. She looked at him, and for the first time, words, however broken, came from her. "Shh, then, you," she said haltingly, her accent strange but the meaning clear. Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. It was more than gratitude, it was trust, respect, and relief. "You're welcome," he said simply. "You're safe now." For a moment they just looked at each other. No words could fully express what had passed between them in those hours of careful work. Ethan realized that humans were capable of small acts that could have huge consequences. In a universe where trust between species was rare, this was a first step toward understanding. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed from the cliffs above. Ethan turned, scanning the horizon. Dust clouds were forming and he could see movement. Creatures native to Viridian 4, drawn by the sparks and noise. They were large, fast, and clearly predatory. He realized they were heading toward them. The alien tensed, stepping slightly behind him. Ethan's mind raced. He had helped her, but now they were in danger. Yet even in that moment, he felt a strange confidence. Humans could improvise, humans could survive, and humans could fight to protect those who could not defend themselves. He looked at her. "We need to move," he said firmly. "Follow me." The alien nodded, and together they started toward the relative safety of a nearby canyon. Each step was careful, each movement deliberate. Ethan's heart beat fast, but he felt alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. He had made a connection across species, across worlds, and for the first time, he understood the truth behind the stories he had heard about humans' resilience. Somewhere deep inside, the alien's broken words replayed in his mind. H, then K, U. Simple words, yet they carried the weight of a bond that might change both of their lives forever. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the rocky surface, Ethan led the way, ready for whatever challenges awaited. He did not know what the future held, but one thing was certain. Humans, with their courage and ingenuity, could make a difference even in the farthest reaches of the universe. Ethan led the way through the narrow canyon, keeping his eyes on the jagged cliffs above. The alien, Lyra, followed closely behind, her movements cautious but deliberate. Her exposed form, now free from the damaged armor, glimmered faintly under the twin suns of Viridian 4. She was graceful, her long limbs moving, almost silently, yet there was an obvious tension in her posture. "Stay close," Ethan said, glancing back at her. He could see her eyes scanning the terrain, trying to understand every shadow, every sound. She looked at him, tilting her head. The gesture was curious, almost questioning. Ethan realized she was trying to communicate again, but in ways humans could barely interpret. He slowed down, crouching behind a boulder as a rustle sounded from above. A group of native predators had appeared, their 4 legs propelling them forward with terrifying speed. They paused, sniffing the air, and Ethan saw their sharp, serrated teeth glint in the sunlight. "We can't outrun them for long," Ethan muttered. "We'll have to distract them." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes fixed on him. She raised a hand, then lowered it slowly, repeating the gesture several times. Ethan frowned. He wasn't sure what she wanted, but he realized she was suggesting a plan, some action they could take together. "Okay," he said, nodding. "Let's try it your way." He followed her movements as she scanned the canyon walls. With a few quick gestures, she pointed toward some loose rocks. Ethan understood immediately. They could use the rocks to create noise and divert the predators. He picked up a handful and tossed them carefully, hitting the canyon walls to produce a loud echo. The predators turned, startled, and charged toward the sound. Ethan and Lyra moved quickly in the opposite direction, ducking behind boulders and keeping low. Her hums grew louder, rhythmic, almost like a guiding melody. Ethan realized it was not just a sound, It was communication, a way to coordinate, even without shared language. After several tense minutes, they reached a safer area, a small hollow surrounded by high rocks. Ethan exhaled, his chest rising and falling rapidly. "That was close," he said. Lyra nodded, her gaze softening. She stepped closer to him, almost as if to say, "Thank you." Ethan smiled faintly. He had come to understand that trust between species wasn't easy, but moments like this made it possible. They rested for a few minutes, catching their breath. Ethan took out his portable scanner, checking Lyra's vitals as best he could. Her pulse was steady, but her respiratory rate was faster than normal. He suspected that the armor had been restricting her breathing, and the effort to move quickly now was taking a toll. "You're okay," he said finally. She looked at him, eyes wide, and gave a soft hum of acknowledgement. Ethan considered how to communicate better. Words alone would not work. Gestures, tone, and patience would be key. He mimicked some of her hums, experimenting with rhythms and pitch. Lyra tilted her head, observing him closely. When he repeated a sequence correctly, she gave a small nod and a smile, or at least what could be interpreted as a smile. "It's like music," Ethan muttered. "We can talk with sound and motion." She responded with a low hum, and Ethan realized that even small efforts mattered. This was H. Ethan and Lyra reached the plateau just as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The alien settlement below glowed softly, not with fire or electricity, but with a calm, natural luminescence that seemed to come from the very walls of the buildings. It was beautiful, serene, and unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. He crouched behind a rock and gestured for Lyra to stay close. She mirrored his movements, her golden eyes wide with cautious curiosity. Ethan could sense her relief. After hours of travel through dangerous terrain, they had finally made it this far. "Almost there," he whispered. "We just need to descend carefully." Lyra nodded, her gestures small but precise, pointing to the safest path down. Ethan realized that even without shared language, they had developed a silent way of communicating. Her gestures were intentional, meaningful, and clear. And somehow, through her movements, he began to understand not just her instructions, but her emotions, the tension, the hope, and the cautious trust. As they made their way down, Ethan took a moment to study her more closely. Freed from the damaged armor, her form revealed details of her species he had never imagined. Her skin shimmered subtly with shades of blue and green, adapting slightly to the light. Small, delicate ridges ran along her arms and shoulders, almost like natural plating but elegant and smooth. Her hair, or what could be called hair, flowed in thin, luminous strands that caught the fading light. Ethan marveled at the uniqueness of her biology. "Amazing," he whispered, almost to himself. She turned her head, giving a soft hum, as if acknowledging his wonder without feeling threatened by it. Finally, they reached the outskirts of the settlement. Small groups of aliens, similar in form to Lyra, moved calmly through the streets. The community seemed peaceful, almost harmonious. Ethan noticed that unlike most human settlements he had seen, there were no visible weapons or barriers. The aliens relied on careful planning, trust, and perhaps natural defenses. Lyra stopped and made a series of gestures. She pointed to the settlement, then to herself, and finally toward Ethan. He frowned slightly but soon understood. She wanted him to know that he could come in safely, that the people here would accept him because she trusted him. Ethan took a deep breath. "All right," he said. "Let's go." As they entered the settlement, a group of aliens approached. They were taller than humans but smaller than Lyra, their bodies lithe and expressive. When they saw her, they paused. Then one stepped forward, raising a hand in a gesture of greeting. Lyra responded with a hum, and the tension eased. Ethan watched quietly. He could see the subtle differences in their forms, skin colors, slight variations in body shape, and the delicate patterns running along their arms. But he also noticed something remarkable. They all moved with a shared understanding, a community cohesion that humans often struggled to achieve. One of the aliens approached Ethan cautiously. Unlike Lyra, this one did not speak in words, only in gestures and soft hums. Ethan mimicked the gestures as best as he could, tilting his head, raising his hands, and lowering them in a sign of peace. The alien paused, studying him carefully, then gave a slow nod. Ethan smiled faintly. Lyra stepped forward and gestured to Ethan. Her hums grew louder, clearer. He realized she was explaining his actions, the assistance he had given her, the care he had shown during their journey. The other aliens watched, their expressions thoughtful. Slowly, understanding seemed to spread across their faces. They were not used to humans, yet somehow Lyra had bridged the gap. Ethan felt a mix of relief and wonder. He had heard stories of first contact between species, most of them tense, dangerous, or tragic. But here, in this moment, he was witnessing a different possibility: trust, understanding, and connection. One of the elders, taller and more adorned than the others, stepped forward. Lyra gestured toward him and then toward Ethan. The elder regarded Ethan carefully. Then, in a series of deliberate movements, he touched his chest and then extended a hand toward Ethan. Ethan understood. It was a gesture of welcome, recognition, and acceptance. He stepped forward and mirrored the gesture. The elder's hand hovered, then gently touched Ethan's. It was brief, but the meaning was clear. He was accepted, at least for now. Lyra's hums filled the space between them, soft and melodic, conveying relief and gratitude. As the evening deepened into night, Ethan and Lyra sat together near a small water source. The alien settlement was quiet, almost reverent in its calm. Ethan felt a strange sense of peace. He had risked his life to help an alien in need, and in return, he had been welcomed into a world that seemed both foreign and familiar. Lyra began to make gestures again, this time more personal. She pointed to the armor, then to herself, and finally to Ethan. Ethan frowned for a moment, unsure of the meaning. Then, with a soft hum, she seemed to illustrate her past struggles, the battles, the injuries, the isolation. She had lived with pain, fear, and uncertainty, yet here she was, trusting him completely. Ethan felt a deep respect for her resilience. Humans prided themselves on survival, ingenuity, and courage. Lyra's story mirrored those qualities in a way that transcended species. In a universe filled with danger, trust and empathy were rare, but they could create bonds stronger than fear. He spoke softly. "I understand, at least a little. You've been through so much, but you made it, and I'm glad I could help." Lyra's eyes shimmered in response, and she gave a low, melodic hum that seemed to resonate in the quiet night. Ethan smiled, feeling the weight of their shared experience. Trust had been given, accepted, and reciprocated. It was a simple thing, yet it carried immense significance in a universe where survival often came at the cost of compassion. As they watched the soft lights of the settlement, Ethan reflected on humanity's potential. Humans were small, fragile, and limited in many ways, yet their courage, empathy, and ingenuity allowed them to bridge divides that seemed impossible. They could inspire hope, even in beings whose worlds were entirely different. Lyra turned to him and gestured toward the stars above. Ethan looked up, seeing distant galaxies and planets, each a mystery, each a possibility. He realized that the universe was vast and filled with unknown challenges, but also filled with opportunities for connection, understanding, and heroism. Tonight, he had learned something important. Humans were capable of more than survival. They could build bridges across species, across worlds, and across fear itself. And in doing so, they could leave an impact that resonated far beyond themselves. Lyra's hums continued softly in the night, a reminder of trust, gratitude, and hope. Ethan listened, feeling a quiet determination settle in his chest. Whatever lay ahead, he knew that humans had a role to play in this universe, a role not just of strength, but of understanding and courage. And for the first time, he truly believed that small actions, guided by empathy and courage, could change the course of entire worlds. The soft glow of the alien settlement did little to ease Ethan's tension. He had marveled at the harmony of Lyra's world, but he knew the universe rarely stayed peaceful for long. The tranquility of the valley was suddenly shattered by distant thunderous roars echoing through the canyon. Ethan froze. Lyra stiffened beside him, her ears, or what he assumed were auditory organs, twisting toward the sound. He had seen predators before, but these were larger, faster, and more aggressive. Their earlier encounter had been just a warning. Now, something far more dangerous was coming. "They're coming," Ethan whispered, his voice tight. Lyra's hums grew quick and sharp. A clear signal of alarm, Ethan scanned the canyon. The terrain was open, giving little cover for escape. But humans had a unique advantage: improvisation. He quickly assessed their surroundings, noting boulders, narrow ledges, and loose rocks that could be used as weapons or obstacles. "Follow my lead," he said. "We'll make them work for it." The predators appeared first as shadows against the rocky cliffs, then fully emerged, sleek, four-legged hunters with jagged teeth and muscular limbs. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Ethan's pulse raced. He had to act fast or both he and Lyra could be in serious danger. "Here," he said, grabbing a thick branch and some rocks. He gestured for Lyra to assist. She tilted her head, then understood immediately. Her gestures guided him to a precarious ledge above, where rocks could be dislodged to block or slow the predators. Ethan climbed carefully, balancing on the uneven terrain while holding his improvised tools. Lyra followed, using her agility to move effortlessly along the rocks. Together they created small avalanches of stones and debris, forcing the predators to adjust their path. "They're smart," Ethan muttered under his breath. "But we're smarter." The predators lunged repeatedly, but Ethan's quick thinking kept them at bay. He rolled boulders to create barriers, used the narrow ledges to funnel the attackers, and even drew on his knowledge of the planet's terrain to anticipate their movements. Lyra assisted, her own abilities complementing his. She used her long limbs to sweep smaller stones into the predator's path, creating distractions and misdirection. For a moment it felt almost like a dance, a deadly, coordinated performance between human and alien. Ethan marveled at the way their cooperation had evolved in such a short time. Trust, understanding, and ingenuity were their strongest weapons. Despite the tension, Ethan felt a surge of pride. Humans often relied on technology to solve problems. The morning light spilled over the alien settlement, bathing everything in soft shades of blue and silver. Ethan stood near the edge of the valley, gazing at the calm, orderly world around him. Lyra appeared beside him, moving with the same careful grace that had marked her from the beginning of their journey. Ethan felt a quiet warmth in her presence. Their experiences had forged a bond neither fully understood yet, but it was real. Trust had been earned through action, not words, and that trust had grown stronger with every challenge. "We need to learn from each other," Ethan said softly, almost to himself. Lyra tilted her head and hummed. She pointed to herself, then to him, and finally to the settlement. Ethan understood. She wanted to teach him about her people, and perhaps in turn, learn about humans. They spent the morning exploring the settlement. Lyra guided Ethan through narrow walkways and softly glowing buildings. She gestured to different areas, gardens where plants grew in harmony with the alien environment, communal spaces where groups gathered in quiet conversation, and work areas where technology and nature seemed to merge. Ethan marveled at how integrated everything was, unlike human settlements that often relied heavily on machines at the expense of natural balance. Lyra stopped at a central plaza and pointed to a large structure. She gestured again, emphasizing its importance. Ethan understood that it was a place of leadership or learning. He followed her inside, noticing the walls were covered in carvings that seemed to tell stories of past generations. He couldn't read the language, but the images conveyed resilience, intelligence, and a deep connection to the world. As they moved, Lyra paused and touched her chest, then extended a hand toward Ethan. He understood immediately. She wanted him to share about his own world. Ethan smiled faintly, realizing how remarkable this exchange was. Two beings from different worlds, communicating ideas and experiences without relying solely on language. He described Earth, the challenges humans faced, and the ways they adapted to survive. Lyra listened, her head tilting occasionally, and responded with gestures and hums. Slowly, they began to create a simple system of communication, a blend of gestures, sounds, and shared understanding. "You're teaching me as much as I'm teaching you," Ethan said quietly. Lyra gave a soft hum that sounded almost like laughter, and Ethan felt a thrill of connection. Later, they ventured to the outskirts of the settlement, where a wide plateau overlooked the surrounding wilderness. Lyra gestured toward distant mountains, pointing to features in the terrain and making soft hums that Ethan interpreted as explanations of natural hazards, predator patterns, and safe pathways. Ethan realized that this knowledge could save lives. He took mental notes, thinking about how humans could adapt and survive in alien environments. He also understood that her trust in him was deepening, and with that trust came responsibility. Humans had the potential to inspire hope, and failure here could break that bond. "Humans can be strong," Ethan murmured almost to himself. "Not just physically, but in courage, intelligence, and heart." Lyra tilted her head, her golden eyes reflecting understanding. Her hums were soft, rhythmic, and soothing, as if to agree with him. Their peaceful exploration was suddenly interrupted. A warning signal rang out from the edge of the settlement. An alien patrol had detected movement in the wilderness. Lyra stiffened, and Ethan felt his pulse quicken. Danger had not disappeared. It merely waited, patient and silent, ready to strike when least expected. They moved quickly toward the source, finding a small group of scouts facing trouble. Predators, similar to those they had encountered before, were approaching. Ethan looked at Lyra, who gestured for him to act. "Let's help them," he said. Together they coordinated defenses. Ethan directed the aliens to use natural terrain features and improvised barriers, while Lyra guided them in rapid, precise maneuvers. Humans had a unique gift, the ability to think quickly, improvise under pressure, and adapt strategies on the fly. Tonight, that gift would be tested. The predators attacked, but Ethan's planning and Lyra's guidance gave the alien scouts the upper hand. Rocks fell, pathways were blocked, and predators were funneled into traps designed by both human and alien ingenuity. After tense minutes, the creatures retreated, defeated but alive. Lyra turned to Ethan, her gestures expressive, her hums melodic. He interpreted her meaning: gratitude, admiration, and acknowledgement of human skill. Ethan smiled, feeling the weight of the moment. Humans had not only survived, but had proven themselves capable of contributing meaningfully to another species' safety. As the adrenaline faded, Ethan and Lyra returned to the settlement. She led him to a quiet area, where the community gathered in small circles. Lyra gestured to him, indicating that he should share what he had learned about Earth and human problem-solving. Ethan spoke slowly, using gestures and simple words. The aliens listened intently, clearly impressed by human ingenuity and resilience. He realized something important. Humans were often underestimated. They lacked the natural adaptations of some alien species, but they had something equally valuable: ingenuity, courage, empathy, and the ability to inspire trust. That combination, he thought, could bridge worlds, solve problems, and even prevent disasters. Lyra's gestures and hums continued throughout the night, explaining her people's history, challenges, and values. Ethan listened carefully, recognizing parallels between humans and her species. Both faced danger, uncertainty, and struggle. Both relied on trust, cooperation, and courage to survive. And both, he realized, could grow stronger by learning from one another. By the time the twin moons rose in the sky, casting soft silver light over the valley, Ethan felt a deep connection with Lyra. They had survived together, learned from each other, and proven that cooperation could overcome even the most dangerous challenges. Trust had been tested and reinforced, and a bond had formed that was rare and extraordinary. Humans were small, fragile, and limited in many ways, yet their courage, ingenuity, and empathy could leave a lasting impact. Ethan realized that this bond with Lyra was just the beginning. Together they could explore, adapt, and even inspire hope across worlds. Lyra's final hum of the night resonated softly in the valley, a reminder of trust, understanding, and connection. Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a quiet pride. Humans had proven themselves, not through brute force but through heart, intelligence, and courage. And for the first time he truly understood that this bond, the trust between two species, was a powerful force. In a vast universe filled with unknown dangers, it could be a light, a bridge, and a promise. The night was calm now, but Ethan knew challenges awaited. He was ready. Humans had faced adversity before, and with courage, intelligence, and heart, they could face it anywhere, even here, on a world far from home. The first light of dawn broke over the alien settlement, painting the valley in soft gold and violet hues. Ethan stood on a gentle rise, overlooking the peaceful world below. He felt a quiet sense of accomplishment but knew this was only a beginning. Their journey, though perilous, had changed him. Lyra appeared beside him, moving gracefully. Her gestures were calm, almost proud, as if acknowledging not only her own survival but the human role in it. Ethan smiled faintly. Their bond had grown stronger with each challenge, and now they faced the final stage, earning the full trust and respect of her people. The settlement gathered in the central plaza. Aliens of all shapes and sizes were present, their luminescent skin glowing softly in the morning light. Lyra stepped forward, her gestures deliberate, guiding the community to understand Ethan's part in their survival. Ethan felt a little nervous. He had helped her, yes, but he was still an outsider in a world so different from his own. Yet as he observed the eyes of the community, he realized something extraordinary. They were listening, truly listening, to his story and the actions he had taken. Lyra began her hums, melodic and clear, describing the dangers they had faced and the courage Ethan had shown. The aliens watched carefully, nodding and exchanging gestures that Ethan could only partially understand. Even without shared language, the meaning was unmistakable: respect, gratitude, and recognition. Then Lyra made a final gesture toward him, pointing to his chest and then extending both hands toward the community. Ethan understood instantly. She was showing that he, a human, had proven himself, a living example of human courage, ingenuity, and empathy. Ethan took a deep breath. "I only did what anyone would do," he said softly, though his words were mostly for his own reassurance. Lyra's hums told a different story. To them and to him now, his actions were remarkable. Humans, small and fragile in many ways, could achieve extraordinary things when guided by heart and intelligence. The alien elders approached, their movements calm but deliberate. They examined him, then communicated through gestures and hums that radiated acknowledgement. Ethan bowed slightly, showing respect, and the elders responded with a slow nod. It was an exchange of trust, recognition, and acceptance, a bridge across species, a connection forged by shared courage. After the ceremony, Lyra led Ethan through the settlement. He observed carefully, communities working together, gardens flourishing in harmony with alien technology, younglings learning through observation and cooperation. Everything reflected a balance between intelligence, culture, and nature. Ethan realized that humans too,